3 SEC states are holding primaries on May 24th. Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia. Georgia's the big one, especially the Republican primary for governor between incumbent Brian Kemp and former Senator David Perdue. Let's go inside the forecast. Donald Trump's Republican revenge tour starts in Georgia.
You're fired.
Where both big statewide races this fall are toss-ups. No politician, not even a Democrat, has incurred Trump's wrath like Brian Kemp. Kemp's alleged transgression? Having the temerity to certify the results of the 2020 presidential election.
And your rhino governor, Brian Kemp, who's been a complete disaster on election integrity.
Georgia is a sore spot for Trump. He lost the 2020 election by 11,779 votes after multiple recounts. The entire process was overseen by Republicans, including the Secretary of State, whom Trump asked to find the votes needed to overcome his deficit.
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
Perdue's campaign against Kemp is going about as well as his last one. He's well behind in the polls, and ironically, his best chance might be a closer than expected second-place finish that holds Kemp under 50%. Remember, Georgia, like a lot of southern states that passed laws to limit black representation, has a majority threshold to win outright. So holding Kemp under 50% would put the two men into a June runoff. Looming in the general election is Stacey Abrams.
We gotta do it again, guys.
Who is credited with laying the groundwork for a string of Democratic victories in the last election. Both Kemp and Perdue have framed their campaigns around who's better to take on Abrams, who narrowly lost to Kemp in 2018. Regardless of whether it's Kemp or Perdue, Georgia is a toss-up. The state is moving left, but the environment this year favors Republicans. The Senate race is also a toss-up, though those primaries have less drama. Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock and Republican Herschel Walker are the overwhelming favorites to win their party's nominations. Still, keep an eye on the GOP race. Some of Walker's baggage, accusations of domestic violence, which he's attributed to mental illness, has been litigated in the primary. Regardless, he's easily expected to clear the 50% plus one mark. In neighboring Alabama, the GOP Senate race is likely headed for overtime. There are 3 candidates vying for 2 spots in the June 21st runoff. Congressman Mo Brooks, veteran and businessman Mike Durant, and Katie Britt, retiring Senator Richard Shelby's former chief of staff. Trump had weighed in on the race, choosing Brooks, a far-right member of the House GOP, who spoke at the rally that preceded the January 6th Capitol riot.
Today is the day American patriots start taking down names and kicking ass.
But then, Trump dropped him like a bad habit. Trump said, in rescinding his endorsement of Brooks back in March, that Brooks went woke.
Everything woke turns to shit.
And decided to drop everything he stood for when he urged voters to focus more on future elections than Trump's 2020 defeat. Let's be honest. That was a convenient excuse to dump a candidate who's lagging in the polls and slipping into 3rd place. In the meanwhile, Trump's frenemies at the Conservative Club for Growth are sticking with Brooks. Either way, none of the Republicans is as bad a candidate as Roy Moore, who lost the 2017 special election for Senate, and Democrats don't have anyone as credible as Doug Jones. This race is solid Republican. The next senator will be chosen by GOP primary voters, probably in June. There's another competitive GOP Senate primary in the South. This one in Arkansas, where incumbent Senator John Boozman is facing a spirited challenge from former NFL defensive end Jake Beckett. Beckett has some super PAC help, but Boozman has endorsements from Trump and prominent state Republicans, like Senator Tom Cotton and Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who's all but certain to win the nomination for Arkansas governor. Both of these races are solid Republican. Other races I'm watching, lightning round style. There's the member versus member primary in Georgia's 7th district between Democratic Congresswomen Lucy McBath and Carolyn Bordeaux. Competitive Republican primaries to replace Brooks in Alabama and Congressman Jody Hice in Georgia. And then there's the race for Georgia's Secretary of State, a once obscure office thrust into the spotlight by Trump's post-election meddling. Brad Raffensperger, who resisted Trump's efforts to defraud Georgia's voters, is seeking re-election against Hice, and 2 other GOP candidates. I don't typically rate elections for Secretary of State, but this one's likely to follow the trend of the other statewide toss-up races on the ballot. And I'll just note here that Heiss, a member of the arch-conservative Freedom Caucus in the House who has Trump's endorsement, criticized Raffensperger for upholding the 2020 election. And since we've talked so much about runoffs, let me mention 2 in Texas, which held its primaries back in March. Democratic voters in South Texas will for a 3rd time decide between Congressman Henry Cuellar, the last anti-abortion rights Democrat in the House, and his liberal primary challenger, Jessica Cisneros. And then there's the primary between Trump-endorsed and indicted State Attorney General Ken Paxton, and State Land Commissioner George P. Bush, the son of former Florida Governor Jeb Bush.
Please clap.
I'm Steve Shepard. Until next time.